Mm. Mm.
Get the fuck up.
Courts of Thunder, French Open, I guess semifinal preview edition is what we'll call this one. Greg Rosenthal, Glenn Clark. I got a lot of sadness. There's a lot of sadness.
You okay, buddy? You
There's
okay,
a
buddy?
lot. I'm not. I want to make that abundantly clear.
The America's
Not
biggest
okay.
Carlos Alcaraz fan. I'm not
Not
gonna say you're the biggest one in the world, because he's got a lot of big fans, but he might be America's biggest one of the biggest.
We will get to it. I promise we will get to it. I was getting messages from people thinking that maybe the fact that we didn't do an episode after that day was because I emotionally could not handle it. And
yeah, our schedules didn't match up. We've got different kid situations, job situations. It took so long. The whole day took so long. We ran out of time.
And emotionally, I was not handling it well, but I would have come here and talk about it.
What a pro. What a pro.
It's what
you're talking to someone who's done a podcast right after the Patriots losing Super Bowls. So
yes, because you've had such misery in your life as a Boston sports fan, Greg. It's just been so difficult for you.
It's been tough. Thankfully, Celtics are lifting my spirits again.
Thoughts and prayers. All right, here we go.
Courts of Thunder.
I want to start because we started the other episodes on the men's side. I want to start this one on the women's side because I think there is an argument to be made, and you attempted in a text that you sent me. I think there's an argument to be made that is significant as other things are. Coco Gauff being in the final of a Grand Slam tournament could be the most important thing that actually ends up coming from this fortnight, if particularly she somehow figures out a way to win this tournament. I still think that's unlikely, but there's an argument to be made that it has the potential to be even bigger than what's going on the men's side, because this is a moment we've kind of been waiting for with Coco Gauff.
Well, bigger here, bigger in America. And are we biased? A little bit, because I still have that stupid, annoying fan thing that I just want to share this with other people. I want other people that I know to enjoy tennis. And I know that's not going to totally happen. And I enjoy the international nature of the sport and root for a lot of international players more than a lot of the Americans. But I do love to see a player like Coco Gauff that I think can capture the zeitgeist. She's 18 years old. We take this for, I don't know if we take it for granted, but she just graduated high school. She takes the picture in Paris before the start of the tournament. And here she is. We talked about it before, talking about the draw show. She had the best looking draw of anyone.
I'll give you credit. You absolutely
nailed that.
You were riding this train from the get-go.
Because my whole thing with Coco Gauff is she beats who she's supposed to beat.
Yep.
She reminds me a little bit of those men who would lose in the semis and the quarters to Nadal and Djokovic, ones that I've rooted for, like Kei Nishikori. Like he would keep getting there. And she's at an earlier part of her career where she's
the Burdicks of the world.
The Burdicks of the world. Now she's at an earlier part of her career. So the fact she's doing that now is really impressive. And she had a draw where she didn't have to have any upsets to get this far. And then she plays Sloane Stephens in the quarters. And I thought Sloane looked better coming into the match. I think Sloane is better if they are both absolutely peaking. And I was wrong. Coco played a fantastic match. Sloane didn't really show up in the way I thought she could for it, but I don't know if it would matter. It's a tough matchup for her. And Coco is playing better right now, I think, than she's played in her life. So she has played her way into this tournament. And I do think she's a threat to win it.
I think she's a threat. I think it's very difficult, right? It's very difficult still for us to believe when we saw Iga look semi-human in a couple of matches, right? Like dropping a set.
She lost a set to my girl Xinwen Zhang.
She lost.
I told you. I mean, who else was giving you Zhang?
You know what?
Before this tournament,
you got a few.
Now she only won a couple other sets in that match, but I mean a couple other games. But she had one.
Yeah, yeah. But after the first set was over, there was very little from that side of the net. But she's looked just human enough at times for you to believe it possible that someone could beat her. I still don't know if Coco Gauff is ready in a potential. And by the way, she still has to win one more match in order to get there. I think most of us believe she will, because we go back to that theory that you espouse. She beats the player she's supposed to beat. Well, if that's the case, she should beat Trevisan. But let's give Trevisan a lot of credit, because she's completely shown up out of nowhere. And every time I've thought to write her off during the course of this tournament, she's just turned around and won another match.
Yeah, this seems to happen more at the French Open than other places. The tennis hipsters are like, well, this isn't that out of nowhere. She made a quarterfinal 2 years ago. Okay.
Right.
She won 5 matches in between.
Yep.
I think on the tour level.
Wow.
Maybe it was just on clay. It was some stat. But she's done nothing since. She's a great story, a fun competitor. She had to take time off from her career earlier to battle anorexia, like a really unique story. But Coco's best should be better than Trevisan. Now, I haven't gotten to watch a lot of her because she keeps playing like early.
I watched
just beat Leila Fernandez.
Right. I just watched a bit of that. Yep.
And her route, Trevisan's to this point, has been pretty spotless, like Coco. Coco hasn't lost a set, and Trevisan, she lost a set to Leila, but she's gotten through pretty cleanly in most of these matches.
And again, she hasn't. Leila was the first seeded player that she had faced. She had faced Magda, Lynette, and oh God, Sasnovich, I believe.
Seville, though, who had been playing quite well. I saw her beat Ons in person. Actually, I thought Seville would win that match. Either way, Coco, if she plays like she did in the quarters against Sloane, can win this title. Period.
I agree with that. I 100% agree that
that level was, Coco is a defensive player, and Iga really started out as a defensive player too. Now I think she can do both. She might need help from Iga, but I think based on Iga's back-to-back matches where she lost a set against Zhang and also blew a big lead in the second set in the match before against Kvinovic, you saw her feel the pressure a little bit. As we're taping, she's coming off a great performance. Iga was very clean in her quarterfinal match. And
Jessie Pegula, almost no threats.
Against the second highest seeded player left, Jessie Pegula, shout out to her, American, who's going to be in the top 10 on Monday for the first time. So but Iga looked great there. And if Iga plays at that level and Coco plays at her best level, Iga's probably going to win. But I give Coco a lot better chance in that matchup than I would if they were playing in the round of 16 and I hadn't seen Coco exhibit the form that she is. She is playing some great defensive clay court tennis and attacking when she needs to.
She's been outstanding. She's been absolutely outstanding. And whether she wins or not, it will go a long way into there being more faith. You just know how this gets, Greg. And we talked about it, fair or unfair. The standard was set so unreasonably high for Coco Gauff because of how she flew on the radar and captured everyone's attention, not just in America, but in Britain too, because of what was happening at Wimbledon.
They like her in France. I think she's going to be a crowd favorite 100% everywhere, basically.
She became this sort of international phenomenon. And then because it was insane to think she would be able to back up those results every time, inevitably the questions come in. Did we pay too much attention? Did we overhype someone? Well, yeah, you did, but that doesn't mean she's not capable of being a really good player.
I don't even think we overhyped her. I think the thing that the average fan, might not know now is she doesn't have the biggest weapons of some of these top players. She's got a great serve, and I think that can be a weapon, and her legs and the way she moves is a weapon. But she had some work to do to get to. She wasn't Naomi Osaka breaking through when Naomi Osaka broke through and just blasting people off the court. It's a more subtle game, but I think she's steadily improved. I would say she has backed up all those results. She got into the top 20 and she stayed there. She didn't play well on clay. This year, for the most part, was disappointing. I would agree with you. The first 4 or 5 months this year were not great. And so that's a fair point.
And maybe not backing it up is the wrong way of saying it. I think that there were people, and let's be fair about this, frankly, because she was a Black woman, I think there were a lot of people that wanted to look at Coco Gauff and say she's immediately going to become Venus or she's immediately going to become Serena. And that was insane. It was insane.
No, they weren't even pros at this point. And even then, look, she's just not the same. She just doesn't hit the ball the same way. But man, she's gonna be back in the top 20 after this tournament, whether she wins this next match or not. I think she'll be, where will she be? If she wins the next match, she'll be all the way up to 12 or 13.
Okay.
If she makes the final, and she'll be in the top 5 or 6 of the race. So a result like this is a life-changing result, even if she only makes the final. And man, I would be excited to watch that match, Coco.
Oh my God. It'd be phenomenal. This would be the best really the best case scenario we could have, like, what final would have been more intriguing in any way than a Swiatek Coco final? I mean, I can't fathom what would be a more compelling global.
I'm with you. Some of the other top players, if they were on the different side of the draw, like a Badosa is the one that sticks out, or Ons, would have been an interesting final. But especially for American tennis and for tennis in general, Coco is she's just like a great personality. Is She's someone that's fun to root for,
incredibly
to watch.
likable.
This is her most likely Grand Slam, I think, to win. Would be the French, whether it's this year or another time. And I feel so guilty because I was kind of rooting for Sloane. She was there first. Like, I've always been.
I hear you, and I do love Sloane. Yeah,
there's something about Sloane. Shout out to her. I'm sure she's disappointed with how she showed up to that match. But my God, in the match against Kirste in the second round, which we talked about a little bit, and then against Teichmann, holy cow, when I'm telling you, if you could somehow bottle what Sloane did in the Teichmann match and you put that against Iga, it's like she could win. Her very best is something special. And I always like athletes like that their peak is just so high.
No question.
But she doesn't reach it enough. This was a nice result for her, but I'm glad to see Coco get through. And I think Iga will get to the finals, but I think it's a tough match against Kasatkina. I know Kasatkina has not been in this spot before, but she's been one of the best 5 clay court players in the world for a couple of years now. She plays a very annoying, creative style. You never know. Maybe it's Coco Kasatkina. Maybe Daria knocks out the big one, and that's the way Coco can get to this title. I'm just saying it's possible.
It's not impossible. It would just be disappointing for the intensity of the final, right? Like,
but if you're a Coco fan, right? So
right,
you'd rather play against Kasatkina,
yes,
just get a
win a Grand Slam title, however you win a Grand Slam title. And I know we've talked about that a lot over the years. Sometimes it's just the way it works. Players become Grand Slam champions just because of what happens on the opposite. We have what was the Flavia Pannetta Roberta Vinci situation a few years back, right? Like, however you win a Grand Slam title, win a damn Grand Slam title. Like, do whatever you got to do in order to win.
Right. So I mean, her chances I would say are greatly increased if somehow Kasatkina pulls off the upset. And I'm telling you, that match is, if you like tennis, will be weird. Either Kasatkina, 2 things are going to happen. Either Kasatkina is not going to show up and she's going to get blasted, which I could see happening. She's been a bit of a nervy player. Or I think she could cause real problems, and it'll be the toughest match that Iga's had, and it'll just be weird and a lot of fun. Daria, I've seen her play a lot, and she has a certain feel. To me, she's like a better version of Sloane right now.
2 things I want to point out about the women's situation this weekend. One, I don't know if you saw, but the power that apparently NBC still somehow wields over the French Open.
No, I didn't see.
They've got the Coco match second, despite the fact that these quarterfinalists played today. They have to play today and turn around and play the first semifinal tomorrow, because the NBC window starts after the Tennis Channel window. So NBC's window is going to get the Coco match, which that's the power of NBC. Like, hey, I get it. They look at this and say, we need the star on our broadcast, but it forces the 2 players that literally played today to turn around and play first tomorrow. And the players that played 2 days ago get to play second, just to make sure Coco's in NBC's window.
Well, that's stupid. And that's cold too. I mean, this is why I think the French Open is particularly bad at this. But women's tennis often gets the short end of the shrift. And like, Iga's the number 1 player in the world. Iga's the biggest story in women's tennis. I love Coco and all. She hasn't won 30. What is the number right now? 31 straight matches. 33. Like, put some respect on your number 1 player, who's potentially going to win her 35th straight match.
Right.
And she gets, like, they're not doing that with Nadal or Djokovic. I'm not saying that Nadal or Djokovic, who weren't happy to play late, so they don't get what they want either. But I just feel like that's kind of dirty pool, and it shouldn't be. It's not fair to the players, really.
Okay, I'll hear your argument. I would flip it with, but shouldn't the top seed get more rest going into the championship match? So,
well, either way, that's one day. Yeah, I I guess it's not a huge difference. We're just talking about times of day that they're going to play. It's a weird thing in the French Open that the semifinalists on both sides have different rest going into
and we
the
see this in other,
semifinal.
and we see this in other circumstances where like the player that you're playing against is on the same amount of day rest.
It's fair,
right?
It's fair.
So it's fair. There's the totality of the benefit of playing literally every other day for the player who ends up on that cycle. But I mean,
we're far in the weeds.
Yes.
And I think Iga can handle it. I think Kasakina can handle it, but that is interesting. I didn't know that, because you wouldn't think Trevisan Coco would be in the better spot.
It is the second semifinal tomorrow, because it's the one that they wanted to make sure was in the
on Thursday. I'm looking forward to both those matches, but especially the Iga match. I really think that could be interesting. Daria is just like, she'll drive you a little crazy. She's playing some moon balls. She's running around. She'll throw the kitchen sink at Iga Swiatek.
And then one other thing I wanted to discuss is just one of the other reasons why I love Coco is it is easy for the dullards, for the people that barely pay attention to the sport, to try to discredit someone who tries to become a brand beyond tennis, right? I love that Coco is still playing doubles. I love that as she's making the run of her life, it has not impacted her at all in her strategy of doubles. And I loved when Venus and Serena would do the exact same thing. I love that you get to witness how much they truly love the sport beyond just their pursuit of their own individual successes. I love everything about that because it's the ultimate FU to someone who tries to say that your branding is somehow selfish or somehow it's all about me. Like, no, it's literally the exact opposite. Everybody's got a brand. I don't do nearly a good enough job of it. I should probably get on that at some point in my life. Everybody has to.
I would put you around the same level as Coco. You know, you guys are
correct. Very
worldwide brands.
Yes, 100%. It's such an easy target from dumb people where the actual evidence shows you of how much this person truly loves and cares about this sport and wants to play the sport. And it was always the story with Venus and Serena. They went out of their way to play more doubles. They would play mixed doubles. They would play as much doubles as they possibly could because they loved the sport that they were playing. And it was why it was so easy to embrace them and love them at all times. And I love the fact that Coco Gauff is taking the exact same route.
Oh, and by the way, like Venus and Serena, she's awesome at it. And she does it for a couple reasons. One, she's awesome at it and loves just to play tennis. I think that's probably the number one thing. But watching that Sloane Coco match, Coco can come to the net and has a totally complete game, unlike most of the women's and men's tour. She is fantastic at the net, and that just gives you another part of the arsenal. And she's maybe the best. You know, she's one of the best doubles players in the world. They're in the semifinals. Jessie Pegula and Coco teamed up. No offense to Coco's old partner, like her, her old friend, but it's kind of nice to see her playing with the best players. And she's in the semifinals against another two pair of Americans, Taylor Townsend, in her first big tournament after having a baby in Madison Keys. So that's pretty cool. That's Friday. And like Serena and Venus, I think Coco has said as much, like, I'd rather play a doubles match than go out and my coach in practice with my coach for 2 hours. I'd rather just go play a match and maybe I'll hit for 30 minutes singles. Maybe I won't.
And I've heard more and more tennis players sort of echo those sentiments that
they're competitors. Why not compete a little more? And by the way, if they go win this Grand Slam doubles, like, you make some pretty good money winning the doubles.
And it's I think it speaks to why people within the sport will continue to love you and appreciate the fact that you're lifting other people up in the process as you do it. It's a 10.5, man. I'm so happy that she's continuing to play doubles despite this deep run.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. So Pegula lost to Iga.
And they had to turn around and play in the same day in doubles. Yeah.
Took about 2 hours off.
Yeah.
And then ended up going to 6-4 in the third. I'm sure Coco's coach and dad we're like hoping that thing would go straight sets today.
Right,
but it went to 6-4 in the third. Shout out to them. They're in the semis, and that will be Friday. So Coco does not have to play twice.
Her dad is Corey Gauff, correct? I believe that's her father's name.
She is also Corey Gauff.
That's correct, right? And then I can't help it. Every time I want to believe in Madison Keys, man. Every time I want to talk myself into it.
That was tough. She lost in the round of 16 to Kudermetova, who's had a good year, very good year. Not like a thrilling player, I wouldn't say.
Nope.
Keith had a nice run before that, where she got you believing a little bit. It was she is sneaky, having like, because this is just a sign of how wide open the WTA is right now and how many points there are to be had at the Grand Slam. Since Maddie played well here and in France, she's actually 8th right now in the race, ahead of Coco Gauff, who's 10th.
Weird.
There is such a drop off. Iga has about 3 times as many points as the number 4 player right now. 3 times.
Anything else you want to say about the women's side?
No, that was fun. I know you know, if you listen to the podcast, I'm a big Anisimova fan. Good match against Leylah Fernandez, lost the tough one. I think Anisimova had a tough draw where she kept having to beat good players, but I'm still very happy that she's on a very high upward trajectory. She is 12th, by the way, in the race. So that ranking of hers is only going to keep getting better and better. Courts of Thunder.
All right, so that'll do it for us. Nothing else we need to cover. We can just go ahead and take off. We'll see you guys on Monday for the recap.
Well, I appreciate you saving your painful conversation for a second to put a peek behind the curtain here. Look, we have a tricky schedule here. We are taping during the Casper Ruud Holger Rune match, which is right now at 1 set apiece. So we're not going to know the result during this, but no one really cares about Casper Ruud and Holger Rune, do they? Because we are talking Carlos.
All right.
Or Novak.
I was really excited when Ruud took the first set 6-1. I'm like, this could actually be perfect for us. He could just cruise through this thing.
No, that's not how this men's tournament is working. I got to say, I'm usually all about the women. The men's matches later in the tournament have delivered good, competitive, close, tight matches, whether it got the results we wanted, maybe not, but just a lot of tight matches.
So wish I had a bowl of ice cream or something as I discussed.
What other show talks Carlos ahead of Novak, Nadal?
It's the story, Greg. It's the
okay.
It's very difficult because I have a lot of conflicting emotions with this. And I'll try to walk you through, and you can try to talk me off the ledge in moments or however we want to handle this. The overwhelming emotion is I'm okay with Carlos Alcaraz losing. I just was terrified that this was going to be what would happen, that he would lose to Zverev. And it just makes it so much worse. And I it's tough because like I would be able to be playful about it and make jokes, but like, God, there is no joy in Alex Zverev winning ever. There is never any joy in that whatsoever in any circumstance. And so I had somebody yesterday immediately afterwards being like, well, yeah, but Zverev has been through so much, like
what
and losing all these big matches at Grand Slams. It was kind of his turn. I'm like, get the F out of here with that.
Yeah, no, I was liking that this guy who's a creep off the court, not just for the domestic abuse stuff, which immediately is going to make me root against him for the rest of his life, but to everyone, to other players, to the media. He's just not a mature guy. And if he gets over that eventually, whatever, but he's also boring to watch. He's one of my least favorite types, which is a person that could play super aggressively, but ultimately plays defensively, other than he has a big serve. And so like even the playing style, everything about him bothers me. That said, I don't know if I've seen him play much better.
No, he was
in a Grand Slam situation than that. I've seen him play, but that well at a Masters. People were like, well, that's the best clutch performance of Zverev's career. And I'm thinking, okay, I know he never beat a top 10 player in a Grand Slam. He was 0-10. That's amazing. What a choker. But man, he's won some great Masters finals against Djokovic and Nadal and Federer and some big moments. And those count too. They were just at a different type of tournament.
On the Alcaraz side, I am glad he didn't go down without a fight. By putting up the fight he did, he really did go a long way to back up what we've believed about him, right? That here he is in the first time he's ever in this moment, down 2 sets, battles back, wins the third, falls down a break, Zverev serving for the match and immediately breaks back. And fortunately, the rest of you don't have to worry about, you don't have to be texting with me during a major Carlos Alcaraz match. Poor Greg had to listen to me go from suicidal to elated in the span of about 20
You're like,
seconds.
I'm quitting tennis. I'm quitting,
Yes.
I'm going to want to die.
Yeah.
I also don't want to text with you during big matches because my satellite went out during that. And so I had to,
oh God,
I had to put on the,
so I was,
the online feed, no, which was fine. But I put on the online feed, but it was like a minute behind. And so when I got a text from you that said FFF, and it was 7-7 in the tiebreak at that point, I'm like, that probably means this match is over and Alcaraz is going to lose the next 2 points. And that is what happened.
Exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. I'm glad that he showed the fight that he did. It backs up what we believe to know about him. It's still, I can't shake it. This is a bad loss. It is. This is a bad loss. And you can say everything you want about him being young and that he's way ahead of schedule. Of course he is, 100%. But you just pointed it out. All Zverev ever does is lose these types of matches. And Alcaraz had him on the ropes again. My God, he had blown the set. He had blown a chance to serve for the match. Alcaraz had this. And what drives me nuts, and you pointed out rightfully as we were talking about it between the two of us, what we love so much about Alcaraz is just how bold he truly is, what he's willing to attempt. And it's sublime. It's impossible.
I don't think that changed. I think he was bold.
It didn't
just
at
didn't
all
totally work.
But there were a lot of errors. There were an awful lot of just inexplicable errors during the course of this match. And for as bold as he is and the things he's capable of doing, that won't work. And the context that we're talking about, like he can get away with a lot of errors in a lot of matches and a lot of eras and still be a really good player and probably a Grand Slam champion and all those things. But the way that we've elevated him and what we think of him, you can't make this many just flat out errors, mistakes, poorly hit balls in order to succeed in these circumstances. And that's the frustrating part about it. And that's why at the end, for all of the encouragement, for all of the reality that I know, still, to me, this was a bad loss. This is not, it's not unforgivable in any way, but it shouldn't have happened.
Well, that's nice that you're willing to forgive this 19-year-old man from Spain you don't know, who's one of the great young athletes in the world. I don't think it's that bad a loss. I hear what you're saying, and you were more locked into this match than me. I just think when you're coming up in tennis, you can't go through these steps until you go through these steps. And yeah, sure, there's like occasional players like Nadal who skip the steps.
Mm-hmm.
That's about it. And even then, like Nadal still was going through those steps everywhere else but France.
Right.
And I don't know if this is Alcaraz's best surface. I kind of don't think it is.
He's good on a lot of surfaces.
No, I'm saying, like, if I had to choose right now, if I thought he had a better chance to win the US Open or the French going into these, I would have taken US by a little, just by a little. But I think he's a little better. He might be better on hard court. So I think you have to go through these situations. And I think he could have won this match playing the way he did. Where I did lock in was, the end of the fourth set. And as much as Carlos was bold and he saved match points and he was going for it, man, Zverev won big points with big shots. That was what impressed me the most about Zverev in this match. Is I think he did, even though there were the typical hiccups from him trying to close it out and it wasn't all smooth, he played a great tiebreak. And he hit some big time difficult shots. I mean, including on match point. I mean, the last couple of points, there wasn't a lot that Carlos could do there. Zverev brought out some of his best at the biggest spots, which he just has not been able to do. And
he was struggling. Alcaraz was struggling on his first serve, though. He needed a few better first serves.
Absolutely.
At that point in the match.
Absolutely. But Zverev, like on match point, I mean, it was massive ball. He was hitting big shots, and he just, a lot of times in big moments, he hasn't done that, and he can't do it on his own serve, Zverev. And that's why I think he'll lose to Nadal in the semis. But I You're worried about like this was the worst case scenario. Oh, there's a much worse scenario.
Oh yes, of course. It's the one where he beats Nadal. I hear you.
There's one where he beats Nadal and is then the heavy favorite and wins the French Open on Sunday.
That's absolutely.
And I think it's a little more possible than people want to believe. I haven't looked at the line, but I couldn't believe that Zverev was plus 380 against Alcaraz. I think it's partly because no one likes Zverev, but he shouldn't have been that big of an underdog against Alcaraz, and I'm sure he's similar against.
I'm trying to pull it up right now. The only other thing I want to point out about Alcaraz is the other thing that really jumped out at me. He had 43 droppers in that match, and honest to God, I don't know that it was enough. And I think this goes back to
never misses him.
What you talk about with Zverev and how boring he is. I think it was there. I think there were lots of times that, and I think that it just gets difficult because when you go to it so much, you don't just want to be the guy that hits drop shots, but he's the man.
For the most part, it was working. Although I will say Zverev, he moves so well and he certainly hits a big overhead and he's so tall that, like he handled them pretty well. Even though you're right. Ultimately, it was a winning play for Carlos. It always is. It just always is.
I can't believe it. He might be the greatest drop shot artist of all time. And we've watched him play.
He's got to be the heaviest, like in terms of volume of quality. Like I've never seen anyone play tennis like that. I'm sure people have watched tennis more. Right. I've never seen anyone hit 43 drop shots in a match.
By the way, it's Zverev plus 265.
So, but
semifinal.
Which that sounds about right, but it's just crazy that Alcaraz was a bigger favorite.
It is kind of nuts. It is
kind of nuts, but it's also nuts that Nadal was a big time underdog.
So let's get there. I mean, we said what we needed to say. I am despondent because I wanted so badly for this to be the coronation, and more than anything, I'll say this is my final thought, Greg. I'd be okay if it just wasn't Zverev. And I don't just mean that because we don't like Zverev. I mean, like if that step in the process was losing a
Steph or something.
If it was losing a 5-setter to Nadal in the semifinals, sure. I'm not worked up about it at all. I mean, I'm bummed because I love the guy. I want the guy to win. I want him to win 22 Grand Slams in his life.
Well, he okey-doked us a little bit too, because the two matches before it, he wiped the floor with Khachanov and Korda. So that second round where it looked like, this is about as that was, the Ramos match where he faced match point was maybe the worst match I'd seen him play in a while. I was like, and then he just wiped the floor with two good young players. I know Khachanov and Korda aren't like in the best form, but he destroyed them. So we kind of going into the quarters, it was like, it's back on. He might win this tournament.
Yep. Now to Nadal, who. It's funny. We had this conversation coming out of Indian Wells, and I said, Greg, the story of tennis this year is Rafael Nadal. Like, he's the story. And that's insane. It's insane that that's what we're talking about in 2022. And it's insane that here we are again. Now, I pray to every God that might exist anywhere. Any God you believe in, I pray that we're not having a different conversation come Sunday. This is bonkers. He didn't just beat Djokovic. He kind of ran him off the court.
Well, he started running him off the court. Certainly. The way that match started, just a blitzkrieg to get it to up an easy first set and 3-0 in the second, 2 breaks was crazy. And when he won that third set, he had different parts of the match where his level was just absolutely outrageous. But the reality is Djokovic he had a set point in set 4, right? I mean, he had a point
he did
get to the 5th set.
Yep.
And he wouldn't have been the better player going into the 5th set. You would have still liked Nadal's chances. But he did have a point to do it. And that's the greatness of Djokovic. But Nadal to put that performance after the 5-setter against Felix, I think is why that line was so crazy. People thought Nadal physically is going to have trouble. And what did I tell you before this?
Well, hang on a second.
I was right on a lot.
Wait a second.
This week.
Now I'm going to stand by something. What I said, I said to Greg at 2-0, when the first 2 games of the match were, I think it took an hour to play the first 2 games of the match.
Right. I don't need more of these matches. 59 is plenty for me. I know everyone loves these matches, but it's like, put them on the other side of the draw. Like, wait till the finals at least. I don't need these matches.
After the first 2 games, I said, Greg and I were texting. I said, he can't run like this for 5 sets. And my point wasn't that he couldn't grind out 5 sets. It was that what they were doing in those first 2 games was, I don't even know how to describe it. That's not even tennis. That's it's 2 robots. Those aren't humans. What was happening there? And so I stand by it. While I had no doubt that he could win the match, and I had no doubt that he could do whatever he needed to do against Rafael Nadal. That if it was going to be that for 5 sets, at some point, Djokovic's cardio was simply going to win out.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know about that. Rafael Nadal looked pretty fresh at the end of that match. His foot has been a problem.
Yes.
He said that the biggest difference between here and Rome is he has his doctor with him, and there's certain things you can do. I don't know if that means the painkillers he's taking or the treatment that he's getting in between matches, but that it's made a big difference, and he's surviving this well. I guess I disagree, because at this point, after watching these 2 matches, I just don't feel like cardio or stamina is going to be an advantage for any human on earth playing against Rafael Nadal. Like, yeah, his foot might like pop up, I guess, at some point, but until that happens, it's not happening in this tournament. He looks peak Nadal.
I think that the shot making was the story yesterday. I think the story was, my God, he didn't miss. It was insane.
You know what I think separates the 2 of them from anyone else, and even Federer, I think, is a little different than the 2 of them, is in these long games. And you mentioned the first couple, but there were a couple in the 4th set, I want to say, maybe it was early 3rd, that were just, both guys had 7 game points each. It was like tons of break points for Djokovic, and then he finally got it eventually. Mm-hmm. Nadal also had like 6 game points in those games, and Djokovic gets up 5-2. I just think like the mentality that the 2 of them have to truly fight for every point and just like not even give an inch in any of those games, no matter any of the score, is really unique. And in this matchup, Nadal, I think, broke Novak a little bit mentally with how well he just stayed in there, just a little. But Novak's done that tons of times to Nadal too, and that mentality to just stay in it, to stay in all these points, to stay in all these games, and to just be that good and that maximum effort the whole time without real drop-offs is crazy to fight for every game like that. And it paid off. I really think the wear of that helped Nadal come back from, it was 5-2, right? In the 5th set. Am I crazy? Either way, it was
definitely 5-3. I know it was 5-3.
5-3. Either way, it was a break.
I guess it had to have been 5-2. Yeah, because he broke Djokovic at 5-3. So yeah, it had to be 5-2, 100%.
And just like he was staying in all those games. I think the game to get to 5-2 actually was one of those marathon games, and Novak won it. But then it's just like, okay, Nadal just wipes that away, and he's back at it the next point. And just like that relentlessness is why they're the 2 goats. I'm not saying they're better than Federer, but they might be.
I've told you, I think
a little better in that certain little aspect to the game.
I was disappointed on the whole for tennis fans that we didn't get a 5th set in either of the 2 matches yesterday, because it was the marquee window.
I didn't need a 5th set in Nadal though. I mean, I was happy that thing ended. I mean, it was like 2 a.m. in France. Can we
Who cares?
Can we start the match a little earlier?
Somebody said, I'm trying to remember who it was. There was somebody that was going on about that this week. One of the prominent tennis reporters. I'm like, the U.S. Open has been doing this for years.
But it's stupid. They literally start at 8:45 p.m. I think I get that they're going to have a couple of days off, but the Rude Rune match we're talking in the middle of, they started at the exact same time. These guys aren't going to get to bed until like 4 a.m. And that's just like such a competitive disadvantage versus the guy who gets to go to bed at midnight or go 11 p.m. or whatever it's going to be. I don't think that's right. I mean, that really can mess you up. I think if you're up till 4 it's just not necessary either. Like, this is not necessary. Anyways,
while I understand that in a perfect world, I get it. I don't know. You're not going to get me to root against tennis going on for deeper in the day at these tournaments.
Well, we've been through this one too. I mean, even my son's like, these men's matches take forever. Like, wait, bring me back in the fourth when it's close to being over.
Okay,
Like,
look, man. That's just
we're not going to do this.
That's called bad parenting. That's a reflection on you, my friend.
The one last thing I want to say about Nadal Djokovic though was, I've never heard the crowd any louder for Nadal. Ever. And Nadal is speaking openly that this could be his last French Open. And he's saying, I'm not just saying this to say it. I'm not going to say something just to, because that's what like Djokovic fans think. Oh, he's the drama king. He's saying he doesn't really know. Like, it's holding up right now, but long term, the foot thing is a thing. And he isn't going to be the type that's going to drag his foot around. And he's absolutely right. This could be his last French Open. I'm sure he hopes it's not. But it absolutely could be. And it's just
Greg,
awesome
the way I
see.
read, and apologies, I also read that quote as if like it also had to do with him making this type of run where like maybe he can come back and play, but he just genuinely doesn't know. And
he's hinted around at retirement more than ever in this tournament, and just like that he doesn't know how long he'll be able to go, because I don't think he wants to go through what happened in Madrid and Rome and earlier in the clay season repeatedly. Like, basically, if that starts happening again next year, he might be not playing the French. He might not be playing tennis, period.
I read it also as like he knows that it could just be a day where he can't be Rafael Nadal and he could play, but this can't happen. Like he could wake up one day in the next year and not be able to do this because this is ridiculous.
No, if he wins a tournament, and that's a big if. I mean, he's got to beat Zverev. I think I think Zverev's playing right now about as well as he's played. He's up at has his high level. But if Nadal does win this tournament, he will be almost 2,000 points up on Alcaraz in the race to be the number one player at the end of the year. And right now, he's absolutely the favorite to be the number one player at the end of the year. And that's just crazy.
It's nuts. All right, we need to at least cover the other. I feel bad being so dismissive of the other side of the draw, but this is the reality. Like I saw somebody tweeting something very nice about Marin Cilic earlier, and I was like, Marin Cilic beat Daniil Medvedev and Andrei Rublev, and that's not nothing, right? Like, it warrants conversation to put together back-to-back wins like that, because Daniil Medvedev and Andrei Rublev are unquestionably two of the top.
Gilles Simon, who was 6-1 versus Cilic all time before this tournament.
Sure. There's that. But you know what I'm saying? Like, Medvedev and Rublev are absolutely top 10 players in the world. He's beaten those players back-to-back in matches. That warrants some amount of conversation. And in some bizarro world, if it ends up being Marin Cilic facing Zverev in the final, I absolutely believe that Cilic has an opportunity to win that match. I don't believe he has a chance to beat Rafael Nadal, but I do believe he has a chance to beat Zverev in a 5-set final. I 100% believe that he could do that. And it's a shame to me because there's no way for me to sell it to anybody as being a great story unless you really care about Marin Cilic, right? Like,
no, that's fair. I mean, no one is saying that. It's just a guy who pops up here and there.
Yep.
That when he plays his best, it's pretty special. And for him to do it, this is the first time he's made the French semis, I believe, in his career. For him to add a French semi, it doesn't need to matter to us. It's one of the fun things about tennis. To Cilic,
oh my
man,
God.
what a week it has been at his age. And he's been down a little bit. The last couple of years, he's battled through injuries. He fell quite far in the rankings. Now he's back up to 20. He is, what is he now? 33 years old. So he's not as old as Nadal and them, but to have a big result like this, if he can win the next match, he'll play the winner. Ruud, as we're talking, just went up a break in the third. Cilic has a good chance against Ruud or Rune. I'm not saying he would be the favorite against Ruud. In fact, I believe Ruud would probably be the favorite in Vegas. He could make his 4th Grand Slam final, Marin Cilic. He's made 2, he's won one and he's lost 2 others. And he could make a 4th on clay. I mean, even if he gets blasted, like, that'll be a great a great experience for him. That said, you're right. It's not going to catch people on fire.
No, it's a neat little story. It's good for him.
My wife Emeka still just hates him. I'm always like,
because he
everyone likes, like, I always just like, I have no problem with him. Everyone seems to say he's a nice guy. He always seems like he seems like he's a guy the players all like.
But he prevented your boy from being a Grand Slam champion. So.
Straight set winner over Federer 2 days before that too. So he was redlining. And I have watched a decent amount of Cilic, not that much in this tournament. He's playing great. I don't think it's a fluke that he beat Medvedev. And then I think mentally he just had more than Rublev, who only got to that quarter because Sinner retired in the third set of their match. And man, Rublev is now 0-5 in quarterfinals. He's definitely in the, like, you can't take him too seriously category of guys
right, and
get
really
there and lose.
God,
Sinner
looks so good. He looks so good early on in that match against
Rublev. And then he gets hurt. He's had injury problems. So Cilic is sort of the opposite of a Rublev type, which is like, yeah, he might not be there all the time,
but when he gets there,
but when he makes a run, watch out. A little bit like a Sloan. Like, I don't think the moment's going to be too big for him, and that's why I kind of like Cilic's chances of being in that final. And who knows, maybe even making it interesting.
And by the way, if it's Zverev on the other side, I think Ruud could beat him too, right? Like, I think Zverev will be the favorite no matter who he plays if he gets to the final somehow. But I think either one of those two guys, Cilic or Ruud, could beat Zverev.
Don't let this happen, Rafa. And it
please.
is. The whole thing about the other side of the draw, you're kind of right, because like after Djokovic, Nadal,
right? It just all feels so anticlimactic.
It's gonna be Nadal Cilic in the final. Tennis is a funny sport because Casper Ruud and Holger Rune are playing right now as we speak.
Yep.
That match, Glenn, was started at the exact same time.
Yep.
Prime time in France, for the exact same amount of money.
Yep.
For the exact same amount of points.
Somebody bought
as Djokovic, Nadal.
Somebody bought a ticket. Somebody bought a ticket.
You could have got one or the other.
Said, I'll pick I pick Wednesday instead of Tuesday. That's the day I'll buy my French Open quarterfinal ticket for. And this is what they got instead of getting Nadal Djokovic.
It's ridiculous. And another shout out to me, by the way, because I did tell you Holger Rune.
Oh yeah,
watch out for him against Tsitsipas, and that was a fun match. It proved my favorite Glenn Clark corollary. Every tournament, someone gets the biggest win of their life against Tsitsipas. In this tournament, it was Holger Rune, who's a real guy.
At some point,
a real 19-year-old.
At some point, beating Tsitsipas can't be our measurement because everybody's doing it.
I get it, but that's why it's a funny. That's why it's a funny rule. But Holger Rune, top 15 in the race. He's 19 years old, by the way. He's got to go through these steps too. But he had
a good win before the tournament. Who did he? Oh, he beat Zverev, didn't he? Didn't he beat Zverev?
He also, and he won. I think it was Geneva. Munich? He won a Munich. Yeah, so he's been winning a lot of matches. He's a wild card.
All right, very good. We will be back on Monday or whenever Greg can in order to recap the tournament.
I think Monday is good.
All right, very good. We'll be back with you on Monday. Enjoy the semifinals and the final. For Greg, I'm Glenn. This has been Courts of Thunder.
It's weird being a Rafa fan now, but that's where we are. Rafans.
The biggest.